Good morning, everybody. I'm Jackie Green from the Chatham County Council on Aging, and we are so glad that you are here with us this morning. We have a wonderful guest speaker today as part of our diabetes discussion group, and it is Ms. Tara Gregory. And I would just like to go ahead and hand it right over to her. And Tara, just go ahead and get started and do the wonderful things that you do.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, I'm happy to be here this morning. And I think this topic is going to be a little exciting. I have to say I kept my slides and information pretty brief because I feel like there may be lots of questions and discussions around this topic, and also a good topic to share between each other because you guys may have excellent ideas as well. So I want to talk a little bit about desserts, enjoying desserts when you have diabetes. It can be confusing and even like scary even to think about enjoying desserts when you have diabetes, especially depending on where you're at in your journey and where your blood sugars are at any given point. So today I want to see if I can give you a little information to help you make the best choices for you. All right, so a little bit of discussion between sugar and added sugar, because there's not a difference necessarily in how the body absorbs sugar and will break it down and use it, but there are slight differences in what the sugar comes in, if that makes sense. So if we look at naturally occurring sugar in foods, those sugars are going to be found in fruits and some vegetables and dairy products, and they just naturally occur in the makeup of those foods, and they're packaged in a nice little I guess container almost, you could say. So the sugar that's in fruit is also packaged in the other nutrients and fiber and water that comes in that fruit. So on the other hand, added sugar is going to be sugars, honey, syrups, agave nectar. You can see lots of different things listed on a food label added to foods. So that's going to be those sugars that are put into the recipe or added to a food for flavor or texture. And there's a slight difference in how your body may treat that. Both naturally occurring sugars and added sugars are gonna raise your blood sugar. It raises everyone's blood sugar. The difference comes in with those other nutrients and fiber and in the example of the fruit. When we have that type of sugar, there's less of an intense effect on your blood glucose levels. Whereas added sugar is different. So if we think of maybe a soft drink, a soda, where you have the sugar, the sweetener added to the beverage, there's nothing else in that drink that's gonna slow down the absorptions of those sugars. So it's a much more quick and intense effect on your blood glucose. So any questions here? Anybody have thoughts or questions you want to ask about sugar versus added sugars?
So is all sugar bad?
So no, I don't use the word bad and good when we talk about food. There aren't bad foods and there aren't good foods. It's not a moral thing, right? So if you eat something, you're not bad for eating it. So if you want to enjoy a dessert, don't say that you were bad. There's a way to choose these foods, sweet foods, and build them in a conscious way. And eating them does not make you bad. We are all human. We are naturally drawn to delicious things, and sugar is one of those that we are drawn to because it is energy. Sugar is energy in the form of calories for our body, and our brain can use it the quickest. So sometimes when you're feeling sluggish, maybe you didn't get enough sleep, or just extra stressed, you may notice yourself craving sugar and sweet foods. And that's because your brain wants that energy. It needs more energy to keep going. And so that can lead to you having sugar cravings or preferences. So no, it is not all bad. And there are differences in types of sugars and sweeteners, but none of them are going to be, I can't remember if I talk about this in a second or not, but I'll go ahead and say it. Sometimes people ask me about, is honey better than sugar? And what that really comes down to is the body will metabolize the sugar and the honey in very similar ways. There may be some nutrients you get from honey that you might not get from a regular table sugar, but it's not enough to make a big difference. There may just be a slight difference, but science has not tied that to any specific benefits because it's such a small amount. Okay, so like I said, after that question, thinking, oh, I shouldn't have that, or I can't have that, or I'm gonna be bad and have some cake. I really don't like people to feel that way. I think just because you have diabetes, you can certainly enjoy the foods you love, and at events you're at, there's gonna be these sweet foods that you want to enjoy. It's just figuring out how to go about that the best way for your health. And you can see here on this slide, for those of you that can see, many of you are on the phone, but I'm listing ways that you can enjoy desserts and how you can balance the sugars, the sweetness of desserts with other foods, especially with healthy fats and proteins. So what I mean by that is having desserts that include nuts or maybe nut butters like peanut butter. Maybe choosing desserts that are made with yogurt or mostly with yogurt. Trying new things if you haven't already tried using chia seeds as like a thickener to create a pudding. And then choosing desserts that may have extra fiber from maybe oatmeal or other whole grain options. The reason being, these healthy fats and proteins and fiber will help slow down that intense raise and effect on your blood glucose when you have the sugar in those same foods. Another strategy that's very helpful is if you know you're going to have dessert with a meal, or you're going to an event or a gathering of some sort, whenever that's possible again, you can choose fewer carbohydrate foods or no carbohydrate foods with your meal if you know you're going to have dessert. So if you know there's a certain kind of cake or your favorite kind of pie that's going to be there, you can plan ahead. And when you eat your meal, maybe you skip the bread or you don't have the potatoes because at that meal you're choosing to have the dessert and don't want that extra carbohydrate building on each other and raising your blood sugar more than usual. My last tip here is one that I'm sure many of you have heard about.
So Tara, so I guess what I'm hearing there is to make sure that you're planning ahead, right?
Plan ahead, yes.
Plan ahead so that if you know that, there's certain things that I knew when I went to Mother's Day with my kids on Sunday, that they were going to have some kind of dessert, it's just a given.
Mm-hmm.
So then I made sure that I didn't fill myself up with other things that weren't as healthy and asked for a smaller piece.
Yes.
So just little,
exactly.
Implementing kind of what you were talking about. Not that I do it perfectly all the time, because certainly don't.
No, and that is not, perfection is not expected. I think that's a great point. Even if it's not a special occasion and you're just making a meal for yourself, if you know that might have, I don't know, let me think of an example of something I like. Recently, my grandmother gave me a box of moon pies. And so I know I have those in the pantry. And so if you know you would like a moon pie after dinner, then think about what you're having for dinner. So I think with even, it doesn't have to be a special occasion, just in every day, you can plan ahead just a little bit and know before what you put on your plate, if you're going to plan to have dessert with that meal or just after that meal. And it is better for blood sugar to incorporate your dessert along with like an eating time, like a meal time. It is harder on your blood glucose levels to maybe if you had a meal and then 2 hours later you have something sweet. And then 2 hours after that, maybe you eat again or eat a little snack. Having it kind of spread out like that doesn't give your body a chance to kind of bring those blood glucose levels down after eating. So it is a good idea to work in your desserts with a meal time, because you have those other nutrients like the protein in your meal to help balance out those sugars. And then last thing I have for this, just a tip. Jackie brought this up a little bit, and what she just said was going with a smaller portion. So go with the smallest portion that makes you feel satisfied. Like if you said, "Oh, I'll just have a bite of this," and you literally have a bite of a dessert, I'm not sure if that would be satisfying for everyone. It might be. Maybe all you need is a spoonful and you're good to go and enjoyed it. But maybe not. But I know I've been to a lot of maybe people's houses and in events where you're served a slice of cake and maybe it's much bigger than what you wanted. And so maybe you can split that with someone, or if you can ask for a smaller portion, do. That's you advocating for your health, and you don't want to miss out on having dessert, but you also don't want to lead to excess blood sugars. So start small.
And the other thing that I find with that is if you make a conscious effort when it's put on your plate. So if somebody gives you a bigger piece, and food is such a love language for so many people, you give somebody something special that they know they enjoy, and it's your way of showing them love. But if somebody puts something on your plate that's bigger than you should have, one of the things you can do is to cut it, to actually make a cut on it on your plate and slide one part of it away, so that you know that you don't want to eat all of that. So when you finish the piece you have set aside, then you're done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And sometimes that's harder than you want it to be, but at least you're making it an effort.
Yes. Yeah. And you're creating that kind of visual reminder to yourself of, oh, right. I ate this half that I was okay with, and now that other half can go to someone else, or
maybe somebody else will eat it for you. Exactly.
Exactly. Yes. So, all right. Any other questions up to this point? Okay. All right. So the last little bit I wanted to share, or almost the last slide I have, is dessert ideas. And so sometimes you just need to think of some new favorites. Try to discover some new things that hit that sweet spot when you have that sweet craving, or a nice into a meal, but are not loaded with added sugars that are going to raise your blood sugar too much. So some ideas I have here: frozen banana dipped in chocolate. So you can actually buy these in the store. I think I've seen them, where it's basically a frozen banana popsicle, essentially, that's covered in chocolate, and sometimes has other toppings. You can also make your own. Just slice up a banana and freeze them, put them on a little tray or a plate, put that in the freezer, and then you can just drizzle some melted chocolate over top and have that. That's an easy version to do. And then a second one I mentioned chia pudding. Has anybody had chia pudding? I want to hear if anybody's tried it.
I have not. I've heard about it so much. Have you tried it, Tara?
Yeah, I have tried it, and I've tried. Well, I haven't tried this yet, but I also want to use chia seeds to make like a jam. So I have some strawberries, and I've been wanting to add that to some cooked down strawberries. And the thing is about chia seeds, they're packed with omega-3 fats, so very healthy fats we talked about last time I was here. And when they encounter water or other liquid, they create a gel. So it thickens whatever, maybe if you choose milk or almond milk or oat milk, whatever you're choosing, it will create a gel and thicken it into a pudding. And you can add cinnamon or other spices, maybe like a pumpkin pie spice or apple pie spices. And then fruit, you could put some fruit and nuts with that. And it's a great way to enjoy a very pudding like dessert without all the sugar that you find in those mixes. And very easy. It's about, I think you put a tablespoon of chia seeds into a cup of your choice of milk. Another option.
Could you say that again? You put it kind of cut it in. Can you say that again?
Oh yeah, it's a tablespoon of chia seeds to a cup of your choice of milk. And then
And then what do you do with it?
You just stir that together and you give it time to sit. It doesn't take very long. It's not the same as oats, where you do those overnight oats where you put it in the fridge overnight. The chia seeds don't need as long to kind of gel and create a pudding. So you could just leave it sitting for a little bit or put it in the fridge for a half hour. You could put that together maybe before you eat your meal and then pull it out of the fridge and top it with fruit. Yeah, it's a quick, easy, healthy idea.
So does it have kind of the texture of like a tapioca then at that point? So you got a little bit of it. Does this chia seed stay relatively crunchy?
They will have a little bit of crunch, but you do get that kind of sort of like a tapioca, less starchy feel, but similar idea.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'll have to add some vanilla to mine because that's the part of what I love about tapioca pudding is the texture of the tapioca with the flavor of the vanilla. So that's a great idea. I'm gonna have to try that. Thank you.
Yeah. Somebody else have a question?
Yeah, can you buy those chia seed in the grocery store like you do the what's that other seed? The fiber seed.
Like flaxseed.
Like the flaxseed.
Yeah, is that it's about where you find it at?
Yes, yeah, you can find those in the grocery store. It usually comes in a little bag.
Okay.
Yeah, and Faye, I know I found Walmart carries an organic in a bag, organic chia seeds in a pretty big size bag, which because I mix it in with my oatmeal frequently, or I use it on my yogurt. So they're good.
Okay, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, and they have like the healthy fats I mentioned and fiber. It's just a lot of nutrition packed into that little seed. If you don't go through them fairly quickly, you can store them in your refrigerator as well to keep all those nutrients intact. And some other ideas I have here is a cheese and fruit plate. You could even get fancy with it if you want to make it special. But it's such a great combo of like a savory and sweet option together. I think of grapes and cheese, apples and cheese, pears and cheese. Those are my favorite 3 combos. And so you get that sweet and savory, but you also get the fats and the protein in the cheeses, balancing out the sugars in the fruits you choose. And you can even do
Can you go back over? Can you go back over what you're getting when you're doing the fats and the proteins, how that helps with the sugar?
Yeah.
I think that's something that people still don't kind of grasp.
Yes, I'll talk about that again. So what's happening if you eat a piece of fruit? Let's say we all took an apple and we ate the apple for our snack. That's going to go into our system, break down, and our body's going to absorb those sugars from that apple. And it's going to happen faster than if we had something else with that apple. If we paired that apple with cheese, or we paired that apple with peanut butter, the protein and fats in the cheese and peanut butter slow down the absorption of the sugars in the fruit. So not only do you get a less of a rise in your blood glucose, but it also is more satisfying of a snack or a meal and will last you longer because of that slowed down absorption and digestion. And so for diabetes, that's very important, by having that balance and not having a snack or a meal that's mostly carbohydrates or only carbohydrates, because you get that slower rise in your blood glucose. All right, so a couple more ideas. Homemade peanut butter cups. Has anybody done this before?
Does that include dipping little miniature, like the little semi-sweet morsels in the jar of peanut butter?
I mean, that's
Telling my secrets here, folks.
like an inside out peanut butter cup. I like it. Yeah. I've made these before. I just recently came across a tip for making them, which I like, is where you scoop the peanut butter or whatever kind of nut butter you're using and put it on a plate or a little sheet pan and freeze it for a little bit while you melt the chocolate. That way, when you put a little chocolate into a cup, drop the slightly frozen peanut butter and then chocolate on top of there. So I always had trouble with my peanut butter cups looking more like sandwiches. So you'd see the chocolate, peanut butter, and chocolate. So I'm wondering if this way it would the chocolate would cover the little ball of peanut butter. So I don't know. I haven't tried that
Worth a
yet.
try.
Yeah,
Two of my favorite foods together,
chocolate and peanut butter, yes. And again, that's where you will have some sugar in your chocolate, but you've got that peanut butter balancing it out, and it's a great flavor combo. Next idea, many of you may have heard this one, as a yogurt parfait. So really taking that to a new level, though, if you're having it for a dessert, like go all out with your toppings. Maybe do some crushed pineapple and some coconut flakes, or maybe mini chocolate chips and raspberries. So really jazz it up if you're going to do a yogurt parfait for your dessert. And then two other ideas.
So one of the things that I do for that is I take and I pre-make and I leave it in my refrigerator, and I put my chia seeds, I use hemp hearts, I use ground flax seeds, I'll use the unsweetened coconut flakes. I mix those all up so they're like in a canister in my refrigerator.
Mhm.
So then if I'm making oatmeal or if I'm having yogurt with fruit, I'll just kind of sprinkle those on. Sometimes I'll put in chopped up nuts.
Mhm.
So I have that in there so that I'm getting my seeds and my nuts as well as, the sweetness from the yogurt or the fruit. And for me, that makes it much easier to do it.
Yes. That's a little planning ahead, and you don't have to gather all those different ingredients every time. That's a great tip. Mm-hmm. Great tip. Okay, next idea I have is a mug cake. So this is automatic portion control for you because you're only making one individual size cake. And it's an easy recipe to remember because it's a tablespoon of each of these things. So a tablespoon of flour, tablespoon of sugar, tablespoon of milk, tablespoon of oil, and a tablespoon of cocoa powder. And you get a little chocolate cake after you microwave it for around, depending on your microwave, but around 45 seconds is all it takes to kind of rise that cook that through.
Now, have you ever tried that with anything other than like all-purpose flour?
I haven't, but I imagine it would be tricky to do with like a denser flour. If you're going gluten-free or something like that, like an almond flour, it would probably weigh it down, and I'm not sure you get the rise without adding a rising agent, like baking powder of some sort. But
that's good. That's a good thought. That's where my brain was going. And I mean, in a situation like that, my instinct would be maybe to try it with like avocado oil or something, a healthier oil, versus just like a, what do you call the other ones? Like just a corn oil. But still, whatever you've got, you use, right?
Yep. And canola oil would be a good option.
Canola.
Kind of a flavor, neutral flavor.
Right.
And my last idea, which I just read about because I was trying to venture out and get some new thoughts myself, is a cannoli filling, but without the actual fried cookie cannoli part. So just taking ricotta cheese and having chocolate chips mixed into it, you get that savory kind of cheese with the sweet chocolate chips. So it's kind of like an ice cream almost, but much less sweet.
Huh. I didn't know that was what was in a cannoli. Okay.
Except it has sugar usually.
Okay.
I think too, some recipes, well, my mind went to adding a little bit of lemon juice or something just to like brighten up the cheese, and it would give it a little bit of natural sweetness. So you could also add vanilla extract too, or almond extract, just a little bit there.
Ooh.
You know what? You could do that to that mug cake as well. Like if you wanted to make a peppermint chocolate mug cake, you could just do a little splash of peppermint extract. Or if you wanted to do almond, any of those. Orange would be an option too, like a chocolate orange cake.
Tara,
That all sounds good.
Could you tell us again about the homemade peanut butter cups?
Yeah. What
did you say? I wrote it down, but I missed something.
So you can just scoop little balls or little scoops of peanut butter and put them on a plate or a little tray and freeze them for just a little bit while you melt down some chocolate chips and a little bit of oil added to the chocolate chips. I don't have amounts, but you can kind of guesstimate it because it's not a science. You wouldn't mess it up too much, I don't think. But you melt the chocolate, put a little bit of chocolate down in those mini muffin cups, and then add your little slightly frozen ball of peanut butter, and then more chocolate so it covers it, and then you'll put them in the fridge or freezer to set.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I would like to hear other ideas people have, or which of these sounded good and you think you might give it a try?
Could I get Jackie to mention that the mixture she puts into her fridge again, please?
Sure. Yeah. So what I put in my fridge, and I kind of do parts of these. I do chia seeds. I do hemp hearts, because they're supposed to be, I think, another source of antioxidants plus good heart healthy oils, I believe. Tara, you may know better than I. I've heard good things about it, so I just added it to my mix.
Yeah.
And then the ground flax seeds, which again has the good omega-3s in it. Usually I have some chopped walnuts in there. And I'm trying to think. And sometimes if I have it, I do the unsweetened coconut flakes.
Okay.
You can get sweetened coconut or you can get the unsweet stuff. And I usually try to buy the unsweet. So I get the flavor of the coconut, but not the sugar that goes with it. And then, like I said, I'll throw it in my oatmeal. I'll throw it on my yogurt. I like the fact that it gives me some crunch and it gives me some texture to go along with the other food that I might be eating. Plus, it's good for me.
And I do want to note that sometimes making the switch to less sweet dessert options is tough. Just for example, yogurt, going from sweetened yogurt to plain yogurt can be a real shock, and you might think, "Oh, I'm never ever gonna like this." So if you're there, give yourself some time, and maybe take some time to go half and half a little bit. This is what I tell folks when they're trying to stop drinking sweet tea. As I say, go half and half unsweet, half sweet, and do that for a little bit and give your taste buds time to adjust, and then start dropping the amount of sweet tea that you have. So it could work the same with desserts, especially if you're making it yourself. You can't necessarily say, okay, I always make this cake, I'm going to start cutting down the sugar until I don't have any sugar in the cake. That won't work, because sugar plays a scientific role in making that cake the way it is. So you might have a cake that isn't very cake-like anymore by removing the sugar. So sometimes that won't necessarily work, but in the cases of the examples we were discussing, you can go with unsweetened options or add your sweetness from fruit. Fruit is an excellent way, especially for folks with diabetes, to sweeten foods. I think, Jackie, that's what I sent you, is the handout that everybody probably got. The handout that was talking about fruit purees.
Right.
I put that together because it's let me step back for a second and think about the science of this. So we mentioned here that how the sugar in fruit is in a nice little package that our bodies know what to do with, and handles it nicely, and you get lots of other nutrients along with those natural sugars. And so using fruit purees in place of sugar, or at least in place of part of sugar in dessert recipes, will help you reduce that effect on your blood glucose. Yes, it's still going to be sugar, and it's still going to raise your blood sugar, so you still have to be mindful of how much you have and how often, but the body can deal with it much better than just regular sugars put into the recipes. What other questions?
So can you talk about other types of sugars that we might see on the grocery store shelves? We might see, I'm not sure if it's coconut palm sugar. We'll see the stevias. We'll see the baking blends. Because I guess I've tried substituting a lot of things, and I've learned a lot of things by trial and error, and it can be somewhat frustrating. So if somebody's trying to make some changes, and I know like stevia can get bitter if you use too much of it versus being sweet, and you're talking about the science behind it. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, this is what I thought would come up in discussion. I didn't choose to create a slide or go through it, because it could go in so many directions, and it can be overwhelming, because if I put a list of all the different types of sugar and all the different types of sweeteners, it's a lot, a lot of things.
Right.
So yeah, just to start, just to say a little, and then people can chime in with specific questions that I will try to answer. But you'll see in the grocery store alone, several types of sugar. You've got sugar in the raw, you've got coconut sugar, you've got the regular sugar, powdered sugar, so many different sugars. I will say that the difference is mostly in just how they're processed. So you have super fine sugar or confectioner sugar that has been processed down to like a powder or very, very fine granules. But it's essentially the same exact thing as table sugar or coarse sugar or sanding sugar that people use to like top desserts sometimes. So you get into differences when you're talking about stevia or other sweeteners like Splenda, Sweet and Low, those types of things. Stevia is kind of a standalone sweetener right now because it is derived from a plant. So it's a little bit different from the other sweeteners like sucralose or acesulfame potassium, because those are generally created in a lab. They can be from a food source, like originally, but they are highly processed into sweeteners that don't have any calories or affect blood sugar.
So what would be the brand names of those particular ones?
The ones I like, sucralose is Splenda. And let me make sure. The acesulfame potassium, that's what you'll see it listed as on ingredient lists, food ingredient lists. That's how it's listed. And then you have usually anything that.
What was that? Is that the same thing as like equal, like the blue packets?
So equal is, I believe equal is neotame. See, these even are hard for me to keep straight.
Okay, you're making me feel better.
Yeah, it's really tough to go between the like the sciencey word and the
brand names.
Yes, but I believe it's neotame is equal. Sweet and Low is going to be saccharin. Saccharin.
Okay.
Sweet and Low, and then sucralose is Splenda. And what I say when people ask me about using those, they are regulated by the FDA, so they're monitored, they're tested, and there's many years of research on these, with the exception of stevia, because stevia is newer, so there's not as much research there. But the FDA has decided that they are generally acceptable and safe in reasonable amounts. And so when people say, well, what's a reasonable amount? Like, what would be too much? Based on what I read in the science is it would be if you drank like maybe a whole 12 pack of Diet Cokes, that is when you start getting into the level that's not considered reasonable. And you may have,
in terms of daily intake.
Right, exactly. So it is tough to get to those levels that the science has shown issues with. Now, I can say that individually, you may notice you have trouble with these sweeteners. There's certainly people that maybe if they have the Sweet and Low, they know they get a headache every time they use Sweet and Low or something similar. So you have to know yourself and listen to your body. If you're trying a new sweetener and you realize that hurts my stomach or I'm getting headaches, it's not necessarily because of that, but if you do notice a pattern there, you can stop using that and see if that gets better.
Yeah, I know for me, like if I chew sugarless gum, sugar-free gum, I think it's the sorbitol in it or something. It's one of these sugar alcohols that causes me to get gassy. I just know that happens, so I choose not to have any of it.
Yep. And sugar alcohol, that's a different thing from these sweeteners. They're in their own category, and it's a funny name they give it, sugar alcohols, because there's no alcohol involved in these. There's no ethanol related to it. It's just the structure of the chemical structure is what gave it that name. But yes, stomach problems, gassiness, diarrhea, that is a fairly common response to having a high amount of sugar alcohols. So it sounds like, Jackie, you have even just chewing gum will give you some trouble with the gas. And sometimes it takes a lot for somebody to notice. So it's very individual.
Well, and I think too, it becomes an exposure thing that once, you know, it might not, you might not notice it, but if you have it every day,
Yes.
then your body starts to accumulate the result. And then all of a sudden it only takes one piece to throw my system off. Because it's like body remembers, you know, this is a problem, right?
Yep. It's like, I don't like this. Nope.
Don't give this to me.
All right, so anybody have questions about sweeteners or certain types of sugar? I will do my best to answer.
Well, I'm just concerned because we do use stevia with monk fruit. What are your feelings? I know that there isn't that much research, but is that a better possibility than using the others, or is it just something that I should be staying away from anyway?
So I think it really depends on how much you're having it. If it's reasonable, you know, you're having the stevia with monk fruit a few times a day, I don't find that concerning. And there's enough research, and the FDA has decided that stevia is safe, generally acceptable and safe for use. So there's no research pointing to issues in moderate amounts.
Okay, I do understand, believe me, that I have a problem. I need sweet. My whole life that's been a problem for me. So I guess maybe another way of putting it is, would it be better if I just, like you said, you know, lowering the sweet tea. I do not drink sweet tea, but I do drink, you know, diet, you know, the splendid drinks with water, because I don't care for water that much. Would it be smarter just not to do that, to cut back and try not to deal with it?
I think that's really honestly a personal choice. I don't see, as far as diabetes goes, you know, these sweeteners, they're not going to raise your blood sugar. But if you personally are like, well, I don't feel good about how much I'm having, then I would say just kind of work your way down. So if you're doing your own like addition of the sweetener, like you said, you were using like Splenda sweetened drinks. Is that like the powders that you mix in, or?
Crystal Light.
Okay. Yeah. And so in that situation is you can control how much of the mix you're putting into the water. So if you wanted to use a little bit less, you could. Or if you just wanted to have it less often and try to make water more exciting. Really, I can't say that you need to do one thing or the other.
Okay. That's all right.
Yeah, but if you feel like you would like to have less of those sweeteners, then yeah, make little small changes instead of saying, I can't have it, let's switch all the way to plain water, because that's going to be really hard to do.
Well, I think maybe just by saying it, coming out and actually vocalizing the possibilities, that is a good thing too. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Just kind of sitting with that and thinking about it for a little bit.
And one of the other things that I think is so important is to realize your connection to the food and being mindful when you eat it, to actually enjoy what you're eating when you're eating it.
Yes.
And like paying attention to the sensation in your mouth versus just versus just, you know, going through the motion of hand to mouth kind of thing. So that you really do enjoy it, so that you're not just going through the motion. And like for me, I've taken some of the things that I mix up to drink, and I do change the dilution of it. So I'll add more water to things so that I get the flavor, but it's not the sweetness of the flavor that I'm focusing on versus the actual flavor itself. And I think for me, that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
a personal story. I recently saw my grandmother, and she likes to drink Pepsi, and she was at my house. I didn't have any Pepsi, and so she was left to drink water, which she was kind of thinking, I am not gonna like this. I'm not gonna like it at all. So she got some crushed ice out of the refrigerator and made her a glass of cold water and had it with her meal. And she's like, I've almost drank this whole thing. I'm surprised. I kind of enjoyed it. So it was just her doing something different that she hasn't tried in a while, and it was satisfying. Her body appreciated that water, I think.
right. And even if you take, and I'll add like cucumber slices or something to my water, which really, it changes the flavor enough that it's not just water, but it makes it special that I'm drinking it and not, oh, I've got to drink 8 cups today. Not that I usually do, but it becomes less of a chore and more of something I'm enjoying.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I'll put sliced ginger in it or something like that.
Yeah, that's
So I try to churn, make it more interesting than just, plain water.
Mm-hmm.
So who else has questions for Tara? Because you've got the opportunity to pick her brain. Anybody else have questions? Miss Annie Farrow, do you have any questions for her?
No.
Okay. Bonnie, what about you?
Well, I enjoyed the little tip she gave about the cheese and the peanut butter, because I didn't realize that whenever I was doing, sometimes I'll do an apple and maybe some peanut butter or maybe some cheese and something, and I didn't realize that the effect that it had. I was just eating it because it was good.
Well, that's a good reason too.
Mm-hmm. Amber, what about you? Do you have any questions or comments for Tara?
No, I don't, but I have really enjoyed the program.
Did you get something that you might want to try differently than you've done before?
No, not this time.
Okay. What about you, Miss Brenda Seiler? What do you think? Or Delphine? Anybody else? Shirley?
The unsweetened coconut and the ground flax seeds. I like that. I hadn't heard of the unsweetened coconut. I'm gonna look for some of that in the grocery store today.
Right.
That
No,
sound
and I
like
think there's.
sound like it'd be good in oatmeal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. It's really good in oatmeal. Because it makes the oatmeal gives the oatmeal some more personality, I guess, is the way I look at it. And I appreciate you. It's definitely, and we have to learn from each other, because there's so much out there that we don't, none of us know it all, nor are we supposed to. But it's finding these little tricks that we can use that can help somebody else as well.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's also
Daryl, what about you? Did you learn anything new, Daryl?
Yes.
Good. You want to share what you learned?
Well, let's see. I don't think so.
Okay, that's fair. I know personally I'm going to try the chia pudding. That's on my list of what I'm going to try. Does anybody want to try the chia pudding with me? You want to put that on your list of what you'll try in the next week or so? So again, that's let me see. It's going to be what was it? A tablespoon of chia seeds and a cup of some kind of milk.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So
And
I'm going to
then
see if I can make my new tapioca pudding, but make it chia pudding instead and make it healthier for me.
add your flavors, whatever flavor you want in there.
Yes. It may either be almond extract or vanilla extract. All right. So let me ask this: are there any topics from a diabetes discussion that you would like to learn about for future sessions? So we're trying to figure out. We like to make sure that what we're talking about is of interest and answering your questions. Any topics that you'd like to have covered?
I'm not a diabetic, but what was she saying about the cheese? What about cheese?
Yes.
Are you saying tea like you drink or cheese?
Cheese. I thought maybe she was saying tea, but I thought she was saying cheese, something about cheese.
Like American and Swiss cheese?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Tara, do you want to address that?
Yeah, I was talking about, in this presentation, I was talking about cheese as a way to help, as a food that can balance other foods that are higher in carbohydrate. So having cheese with
I've been eating my mother's cheese. I've been getting those food boxes from our church, and they bring me cheese every week. And I just wondering, maybe I shouldn't be eating too much cheese. That's what I was thinking about.
I may have, my computer froze for a bit there, so I don't know, I might have missed what she said. Oh,
I have learned a lot by listening to y'all about that food diabetes, but I'm not one, thank the Lord, but I'm trying to find out about that.
She was concerned about eating too much cheese.
Right.
Yeah, because she said she was getting some from her church. I thought I talked and I realized I had muted myself. So yes, it's just one of those things. So yes, so she's concerned. So what can you tell her, Tara, about the quantity of cheese she should eat, what it's good for, and what to look out for?
well, I think that it comes down.
I think we lost her.
We lost you again, Tara. Your computer, I think, is coming in and out again.
I'm sorry. I think my internet keeps.
What I would suggest then, Tara, is if you turn off your screen, if you turn off your video, then you should have better. We should be able to hear.
Kind of, it's freezing on me, so
Right.
it's not. I mean, it's not even letting me turn off my video.
Let me see if I can stop it from my end. I can stop your sharing.
Yes.
Because then you can use all of your bandwidth simply for communicating your audio. Now try it.
No.
I can. So
Yeah,
what would you like to say about cheese?
I'll talk while it's letting me. So with cheese, it really comes down to what else you're eating. So cheese is high in saturated fat, which is the type of fat we want to limit for our heart health. So if you're having a lot of other high fat meats, beef or pork or fried food, a lot of those, you don't want to have a lot of cheese as well. So you want to choose between those saturated fat foods. Also, another way to see if you're having too much cheese is cheese can cause constipation. So if you're finding that you're, oh, there we go.
Eat too much.
What was that?
I said
They were, but
I said, if you eat too much of cheese, it does cause constipation, especially in some people.
Yes. A good rule of thumb is when you do have cheese, to keep it to about an ounce of cheese, which is going to be pretty small. It's usually a slice of cheese, or about the size of your thumb if you're cutting off a block.
So, and I think, so back to what she was saying, if you're using your cheese, so say if somebody does not have a lot of meat sources in their diet and they're using cheese as a protein source,
Yeah,
like
there's
how much would be something? I think we lost her. We officially lost her.
Yeah.
We'll see if she tries to come back in. That may be what we, so Annie, we are trying to get you an answer to your question. Is Annie still
that's
on?
all right.
There
Answer
she is.
somebody else then. I just didn't know. I eat cheese and eggs right smart and just have cheese, mac and cheese. That's it. I don't know. Thank you for what you said.
You're welcome. And I think that's where you got to look at your cheese as part of the overall picture of what you're eating. And I'm not a dietitian. I've just tried to learn about food over the years. I'm waiting to see whether she's able to get back in.
Okay.
So if you can, you know, if you're gonna have cheese as part of your meal, I probably wouldn't have it as my snack also, right? Because it's going to give you too much of that saturated fat. If you can blend your, if you can put cheese with some vegetables, that's a good thing. Because then that way you're getting the mixture.
All right.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Annie. I think it's a good question overall, because some people are getting cheese as a supplement, you know, as a supplement to their food, and it's good to know how to use it and not have it cause you more health issues than the problems it's solving.
Right. Okay.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay. Well, I think we're going to sign off for now. I'm glad everybody was here. And I'm sorry that we lost